Well, what's happening, everybody? What's happening on a Monday evening, New York City? Good to be with you as usual. And let's swing right back into it as we left off on Friday with much the same topic. Of course, there is no other topic in America aside from this. I would feel foolish if I came on board and started to talk about anything else. I'd like to. I want to. But they would hang me by the rafters if I did so. So all I can do is talk about this, this plague. And this is a plague, and no doubt about it. Let's get right into it. The only country in the world that would make something so deadly, so insidious, a political issue. We're actually making this a political issue. We have the Republicans and the Democrats fighting over an illness that doesn't discriminate. This illness will get you and you and you and you, irrespective of your political choice, irrespective of your political leanings. It just doesn't work that way. But we're too damn stupid to know any better. And we're still fighting along political lines on something that deserves a full throttle attention by every human being walking this country right now, this state right here. Let's focus on this state because that's where I'm from, and probably most of my listeners, that's where you're from. New York State, New York City, Brooklyn, Long Island, Staten Island, Queens, the Bronx, all of the above. We are suffering. We are dying. We are dropping like flies. They say it's reached its pinnacle. Prove it. The death toll doesn't prove it. The death toll tells me that we're in trouble. Folks croaking right and left doesn't give me any solace. I feel worried. I don't want to walk out of my house. I'm afraid to walk out of my house. I have to put a mask on to walk out of my house. I have to look like, an outlaw to walk out of my house, for God's sakes. Where have we come? What are we doing? I walked into a store the other day. You have to put a mask on. You got to put a mask on. So magically, I take this mask, and I looked at the mask. I said, "My goodness, thank goodness I got this stupid thing." And I put a mask on to go into a grocery store, to go buy the eggs, go buy the vegetables, the fruit. I put a goddamn mask on. The absurdity is just unbelievable. I couldn't get over it. And I walk in there, Jesse James is next to me. Then I got the Crips and the Bloods next to me over here with their masks. Did you ever think there'd come a day where you would hear from authorities to wear a mask when you go outside? Hide your face when you go outside. Make sure you're anonymous when you go outside. Like a bunch of jewel thieves, for God's sakes. It's ridiculous, but nevertheless, I got to calm down. If I start too hard, too fast, you'll get angry with me. You'll say, calm down, I want to hear things that are nice. There's nothing nice out here, folks. I can soft soap it for you. There's nothing nice out here. You know that. You know there's nothing nice in America right now because the way we're handling this virus is obscene. Yeah, the word's obscene. What do I mean by that? Political. It's falling Republican Democrat again, like we're a bunch of idiots. Republican Democrat. For Christ's sakes, the president takes the podium for 2 hours and tries to mend fences. Tries to tell you that he didn't know what was going on in January. His people did the right thing in January. They knew nothing in January. The fake news, so-called fake news, is lambasting him for no reason. All of the above. He says everything to cover his ass, but nothing about when we're coming out of this. What is the future? What is the remedy? What are the remedies? What exactly are we going to do against this pandemic that takes everybody's life? Indiscriminately, across the board, everyone. I'm all jacked up. 646-492-2436, 646-492-2436. Again, the president walks up there with his bright orange face, his dishwater blonde hair, his power tie, and bullshits you for about 3 hours, and you get nothing. Nothing. And then all the sycophants, all the Trump sycophants praise him afterwards. Did you see him? I tell you, you go down, did you see him? I mean, that guy, he got up there, man, he gave that fake media what's for. He gave that fake media an earful, didn't he? You get all those guys. This is Romeo Radio. I'm just, I guess I have cabin fever to a certain extent, but I make sure I get out there and exercise every day, and you should do the same, because exercising every day is key. If you don't exercise, you're going to, the stress just gets to you, and you become very, you got to get out there and move around, and you got to get out there and do what you need to do. And I'm forced to stay inside just as you're forced to stay inside. And again, cabin fever has got its hold on me, but I try to get things done that I wouldn't ordinarily have a time to get done. But that lasts for just so long. So I would say, if you have never in your life, if you've never done this, it may be the ideal time to try. And you may laugh at me. You may say I'm a little bit too new age, or whatever you may say. But try to meditate. What? Meditate? Excuse me. Come on, Romeo. Are you kidding? Yeah, try to meditate. Just try to meditate and reflect. It kind of is a good use of the time. It makes you feel good. It's a good way to pass the time, and it's very, very essential for mental well-being, and I believe in it, believe it or not. I really do. Let's talk about the drug for a second, the drugs for this illness for 1 second while I'm thinking about it. The reason why there's a hesitation in using these named drugs that you hear about all the time is because we're trying to stay away from these adverse side effects. We're desperately trying not to make a sick person sicker. A person with heart disease, we don't want him or her to have a heart attack or a stroke. You see, there's a reason why these drugs aren't put into use. There's a reason why we have to run these meds through a mill, if you will, and understand the side effects and of course the positives. Both, we weigh the two, and you also weigh the person who's about to receive these drugs, and you make a good decision as to whether they're a candidate to receive these drugs. There's not a conspiracy. There's not a grand conspiracy withholding these drugs from patients. When you hear that talk, it tells me you're on the internet listening to crackpots, maybe pontificate in their ridiculous style, which they usually do. You have to understand that these drugs, they're hesitating using these drugs for a good reason. It's not a major conspiracy. They're not trying to keep it from you. So let's look at this thing with some sort of sensibility and go forward. Let's not create problems where there are no problems. And if somebody is on his deathbed and somebody needs that drug badly, that drug as a last resort, or perhaps even before a last resort is needed, that drug should be available to him. But do you treat a person who just starts to show symptoms of the virus with that drug? Well, that's where you have to be careful. And you also have to look at their medical history. You can't just treat these people willy-nilly. And then if they're not getting these medicines, you can't have an outcry from people that have no idea what they're talking about. I'll tell you something. On this subject, I barely know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you what I'm reading. I try to read up on it, and I try to bring you some facts instead of just my raw emotions once in a while, although I do go off on that way many times. But I'm telling you right now, this drug is not being withheld. That's my major point. It's not being withheld from you. it just may be dangerous. And not everyone is a candidate. And again, I was starting to say, if someone's on their deathbed and they can't breathe and it's the last resort or whatever the case may be, give them the drug. That drug should be available. But you have to think about this also. That person, that particular person, should be consulting with his or her doctor, and that private doctor, whomever it is in the hospital, whomever it is that's caring for that particular person, that decision has to be made between those two people, the patient and the physician. That's the way it should go down. It's not a panacea across the board, folks. And I do hope I'm making sense on this, because as you know, I'm not a professional. I just play one on the radio. I'm not a professional. My name isn't Dr. Kildare. I'm not Ben Casey. I'm not Marcus Welby. So I can't really, give you a professional opinion on this. I can give you a logical opinion on this. And I know what I'm talking about. To a point, 646-492-2436. My point is, no grand conspiracy. 646-492-2436. And I love that you're with me. I really do. I really appreciate you're with me. I got bombarded with messages after the last program talking about supplements and how effective they were against this plague. Again, if you're taking vitamin C, have a good time. Just be sure you're not taking too much, because you better wear your running shoes if you're on too much vitamin C. It tends to make you run to the bathroom a few too many times. And that's probably the best that it's going to do for you. You have constipation, maybe a little bit of vitamin C may help you. But against this monster, this COVID-19 monster, vitamin C is like, I made the example, is like shooting that elephant charging at you with a pea shooter. Are you with me? It's exactly like pointing a pea shooter at that charging elephant that's coming at you full throttle and trying to stop him with the pea shooter. You see, in your arsenal, you better have a harpoon gun, a high-powered rifle, something much stronger than a BB gun or a pea shooter. You understand? So I relate that back to these supplements that you cats are really into, the zinc and the vitamin C and all the above, all well and good. Yes, you may put a little dent in it. Yes, you may up your immunity slightly, but is it going to show any major difference against something as insidious, as enormous as COVID-19? I hate to say it, no. Get good medical care. And then I hear that people are coming down with it showing no symptoms. We understand that. There are people that are carriers that have no symptoms whatsoever. We understand that. So we heard that testing was going to come, and that was going to come pretty quickly, but that testing has not come. That testing is sparse. That testing is probably available to those in the medical field, those who have status of some kind, those who hold positions of authority. Ordinary Joe on the street may not be privy to those tests. He may not be able to get those tests. So that testing on the wide scale never came to pass. That's what we want to know, Mr. Trump. Those are the things we want to know, Mr. Trump. These are the things that you need to talk about when you get up on the podium, not about your personal affair, not about you getting elected in November. You need to get on that podium and talk about these things, because we need specifics in this country to hold on to. We need to know what direction we're going in this country. Do you understand there, Jack-o'-lantern? We need direction, and you provide no direction. That's why I'm going to have to vote for a guy who has dementia instead of you come November. That's why I'm considering voting for Joe Biden in November, because you're so inadequate at what you're doing. Do you understand? I wish I can speak directly. I wish I had the ability to interview the president for 15 minutes. That's all I need. 15 minutes. 646-492-2436, 646-492-2436. I appreciate it. And you can text me on that number. You can't call me this evening because I'm doing this program at home, so I won't be able to take your call, but you can text me all evening. We're on for 2 hours tonight, so you can help me out with those texts. I have a lot of time to fill, which is great, fine with me. I enjoy this tremendously, and I wish I had something else to bring you. I wish I had other topics to talk about that were relevant, but there are no other topics, as I mentioned at the top of the program. I'm sorry. 646-492-2436. Let's go to some of these texts, because the texts are very, very good. The texts are good. Okay, our friend Bobby says, yes, you may be tested. You may be tested in most states, and you don't have to hold that position you're talking about. The tests vary from state to state. I think it's a statewide decision. I'm in Alabama, and I think, this is Gary, by the way, I had the name wrong. This is Gary. I think the tests are available if I want to take them, but frankly, I don't want to know whether I have it or not. That's silly, Gary. You do want to know if you have it or not. The only way you can beat anything is to gain some knowledge. To be in the dark about anything, you're putting yourself in a very, very poor position. I don't agree with that. Okay, my friend Bob, who's just a wealth of information. Thanks, Bob. Ubiquitous testing on the scale of getting a blood draw at your dock will not be available nationwide until well after the herd. And you know what Bob means about the herd? You know, it's not a bunch of herd. It's not a herd of cattle. It's when it runs through the herd, runs through the population. It kills whomever it's going to kill. Afterwards, everybody will be tested. After the graveyards are full and the caskets are crammed with bodies, then we'll get tested. Oh, that's so great. 646-492-2436. 646. You can't even go to anybody's funeral anymore. Did you know that? Say your friend dies, he kicks the bucket, he ceases to breathe, he turns room temperature. You can't even go to his funeral. Get that through your head. You're crying at home for your friend. Oh, now I'm going to have to bury him. And then they tell you through your tears, I'm afraid you're not allowed to do that. You can turn on your computer and maybe take part virtually from the comfort of your home, but you can't go to the funeral parlor. Did you ever think in America we'd be in this situation where your mother passes away and you can't go and visit her? You can't sit there and cry your eyes out at the foot of the grave? Did you ever, at the foot of the casket, did you ever think that we would ever come to this in this country? This is, a short 5 weeks ago, I was talking about other subjects. And this COVID-19 was something like 3 or 4 on my list. I actually talked about other more important things at the time. That's how much in the dark I was at that particular time. But I wasn't the president. I wasn't the guy at the helm at that particular time. I wasn't the guy that everybody voted for. You see, I had an excuse. I was just a talk show host. The cat in Washington doesn't have an excuse for his inadequacy. Do you understand the difference? I hope you do. I do hope you do. Can you imagine ball games? Here's the cry from people. I want my baseball. If I don't have my baseball in the summertime, I don't know what I'm going to do without my baseball. Please bring. Folks are dying left and right. They're dropping like flies. Healthy people are biting the dust. I just read about a 25-year-old young man, healthy, dead. And some person, I'll be nice, is worrying about a ball game. Seriously, folks. Now, the ball games that you're talking about that's going to be played this summer, if they ever do that, they're thinking about putting everybody in Arizona. Now dig this part, because this part is the funniest part. To me, a former ball player, I was there on a high level. I used to make fun of all you fans out there who enjoyed watching baseball. All the ball players, by the way, did you ever know that? I'm not sure if you know that. All the athletes make fun of the rabid fans. We used to make fun of you people back in the old days, how you were so loyal and so sycophantic back in the old days. We made fun of you. You're so into these guys that run around chasing a white ball on a field. And again, I speak from experience. If they would have told me back in the old days that we had to go play a ball game with no crowd, I would have done like LeBron James did. Did you hear what he said when they first told him? He changed his tune since then. But did you hear what he said when they first told him they weren't going to play in front of a crowd? I ain't going to play. You don't play, I ain't going to play. I'm telling you one thing now. The very articulate LeBron James, I ain't going to play. I gotta have fans and motherfucker. I gotta have fans. I ain't gonna play no basketball in front of nobody. I gotta have, the very articulate LeBron James. They say he's so bright. Yeah. He said he kind of nixed the idea, and it was interesting because I would have felt the same way, as though I made fun of him, but I would have felt the same way. But they're actually thinking of holding ball games in empty stadia. You like that? That's the plural of stadiums, by the way. Stadia. Can you dig it? They're actually thinking of doing that. I think it's absurd. You mean to tell me that we can't go without baseball? And I love base. I used to. I can't say I do anymore, because what they're playing now is not really the game that I played. It's a watered-down version. The game that I played back in 1924, I'm kidding, back in the 80s, was in the 70s and the 80s, was a different ball game. It's not even recognizable in many ways. But you mean to tell me that it's supposed to be a big sacrifice? Folks, hear me. It's supposed to be a big sacrifice to not have baseball this year. Give me a break. People are dying. People are falling ill. This is a crisis beyond compare. And you're worried about your baseball? I understand it's a distraction. I understand that you can't do without it, for Christ's sakes. But my goodness, it is truly sad how selfish, how spoiled, how idiotic we are in this country. We're craving baseball. And what about the basketball season? Wait a minute. What about the basketball season? What about NCAA March Madness? What about my hockey? Give me a break, man. Grow up. Stop watching kids' games and thinking you're doing something with your time, because you're wasting your time in many ways. I know we need recreation. I understand the usefulness of these things. I understand. I get it. You don't have to, scold me for these points of view, but I know what I'm talking about, because our priorities are skewed. We're a bunch of dopes. You understand how stupid Americans are? They're stupid. So stupid. Only a stupid nation would ever politicize a deadly disease. Only a dumb, stupid nation would politicize a deadly disease. A disease that knocks everybody off indiscriminately. Only a dumb nation would politicize it. How else should I feel? And those of you, folks, I'm on a roll. Those of you, folks, who are, you're ostracizing Asian Americans. Let's talk about the logic behind that. I know you won't admit it. I know it's a tough subject to broach. I know it makes you feel uneasy. I get it. You bunch of bigots. You're ostracizing Asian Americans. You're so silly. You know what I saw? I saw this crowded grocery store a chain grocery store. What was it again? I can't remember what it was. But it was a big chain grocery store. People were outside because, as you know, they let a certain amount of people in these stores these days. So, if, 20 people can go in, they have a line outside, one person comes out, they bring the other guy in there with a mask on and the gloves, the whole works. It's like George Orwell, 1984, for Christ's sakes. So they're packing in this this chain grocery store. And about a half a block away sits a Chinese grocer. And he's there. I want customer. I'm sorry. He's there. The Chinese grocer is there. I'll get in trouble for that, boy. Oh, I'll get killed for that. It just came out of my mouth. The Chinese grocer is there. And nobody enters that store because we are so paranoid of the Asian American, and foolishly, so silly. We're so paranoid of the Asian American that we would cram into the other store where we're risking our health in a certain way because there's so many people inside, while the Asian store, the Chinese store, even the Korean store, because you folks don't know the difference, right? I hate to say that, but it's a very stereotypical thing to say, but you get it, right? The Korean store, the Chinese store, empty. Another fine example of the IQ of the American. Guess where Romeo went? He went into the Chinese store, bought out the whole place, made the proprietor happy, and guess what happened? Nothing. I'm unscathed. I'm okay. I'm gonna live. You understand how dumb we are? Okay, I'll lay off. 646-492-2436. 646-492-2436. Let's check out these texts upon request, and I appreciate that very much, very much, very much. Okay, my friend Andrew said, I ventured out to the supermarket early Saturday morning here in Bergen County. I saw a funeral procession of the hearse and one car following with one lone woman driving. I cannot stop thinking about this poor woman having to go bury a loved one by herself. That's my friend Andrew. You're so right. You're so right. My buddy Ray says, thank you for waking up the dormant brain cells, making us think a little bit deeper than we've had in several years. Thank you. Thank you there, buddy. My friend Lisa said, it's bad enough Trump is president, but it's even worse during this crisis. I knew I liked you there, Lisa. I knew you were bright. We are screwed. He has no idea how to run a country. This is scary. Okay, let me just mention how we can get off the rail in our criticism. President Trump did not create the virus. I'm saying something now that should be understood. President Trump did not create the virus. President Trump had nothing to do with it. And we know that because there are crackpots that want to blame him for everything. The reason why I'm blaming him back in January, even before, they say, I'm not really aware of when this information got to Washington and we really knew what was happening. I'm not quite aware. So let's say January, because he didn't want to screw anything up, because the economy was sailing along and we were riding the crest of the Obama economy. The Trump economy. Because experts will say that the recovery started during Obama's reign, but we'll give it to Trump just to make him feel good, like he needs an ego boost. He sat on his hands because it was politically expedient for him to do so. I come close to the radio. I'll say it again for you. He knew something was brewing. He knew the bat's head was bitten off already. You remember that whole thing in the wet market? The wet market? I love those wet markets. My goal is to shop at a wet market one day. You know, I always wanted a nice fried bat in the late afternoon. Nothing goes better with a late afternoon sunshine than a fried bat right on the grill. For Christ's sakes. Trump didn't want to screw anything up. He didn't want to rock the boat. He probably wasn't aware of how big this was going to get. I'll give him that. He made a mistake. I don't think it was a malicious mistake, but it was very costly. And what's his name again? Fauci? I never remember his name, for God's sakes. He's got the voice like he's got a steady diet of sandpaper, for Christ's sakes. But nevertheless, Fauci was late to the dance himself. The expert, Fauci, was late to the dance himself. I'll paraphrase his comments back in January. His comments were something like this. This is nothing we have to worry about on a grand scale. This will blow over, especially since the warm weather will be coming in a very short time. This is the expert, because experts can F everything up also. This is the expert talking. So when you hear Fauci criticize Trump, the president, you can hearken back to his misstatement back in January that this was innocuous. He didn't use the word innocuous. That's my word. This was going to be tame. It wasn't going to be a big deal. It was going to be fine. So let's just say that the two honchos that you have to listen to for 3 hours on these briefings, they both don't know what the hell they're talking about half the time, but they were wrong in January. And by the way, Mr. President, one more time, as I'm on that subject, Mr. President, let the expert talk. You know as much about about COVID-19 as I do about nuclear physics. So please let the expert talk and stop interrupting. And the battle that goes on, much like the battle between Cuomo and de Blasio here in New York City, or New York State, actually, Cuomo reigning over the whole state. Much like that battle, they continue to fight and fight and fight and fight. And every time they fight, every time the one-upmanship goes on, we suffer. We suffer. When they don't get along, we suffer. When these two can't put aside their differences and do something that actually means something, we suffer. 646-492-2436. Stop giving the number. 646-492-2436. Broadway. How about Broadway? Give my regards to Broadway. Remember me, the Herald Square. You know, Broadway, right? I'm an actor. I'll tell you about Broadway. I heard this one guy. I'll do his imitation. This is how he sounded. He was a great guy, by the way. He's a producer that I know. Great guy. I won't mention his name, but I'll do his imitation. Do you realize, Ralph? Do you realize that Broadway will be dark? Broadway will be dark for at least, I would say, probably about 5 more months. I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. I have no idea what I'm going to do. But Broadway will be dark for 5 months. Did you ever think as an actor, Ralph? Yes, I said, that Broadway would be dark. Another situation where I'm afraid we're going to have to bite the bullet. I know we live high on the hog. I know we're spoiled, as a group of people could ever be spoiled. But you have to bite the bullet on a Broadway show. Is that possible that you may not be able to sit there and watch these goofballs on stage? And believe me, this is my forte. This is my thing. I love it. But we can do without it, right? We can do without it, right? We're not going to die because because of Broadway. And people are taking it hard. I understand it to a certain extent, but man, I can't help but think sometimes how spoiled rotten we are with these, what would you call these things? They're entertainment venues. I know that, but they're also, what can I say about them? They're luxuries. That's a good word. They're luxuries. They're things, they're not necessities. They're things we could do without, and in good time, probably in 2025, I sure as hell hope not. In good time, we'll get back to these wonderful amenities that we take for granted when they're there, but we miss when they're gone. Isn't that something? Let me read a couple of these texts because people are texting. I got about 100 of them so far. I appreciate that. Let's see. We have Diane in at the Port Authority. What are you doing at the Port Authority? Diane says, I listen to you so I can get the real something. She says, I can't read her. It could be bad. I hope not. I listen to you so I can get the real bloop. I don't know what she said there. And you tell it like it is, but I do know one thing. The sooner we get back to normalcy, the better that I'll feel. My depression is worsening, and I have clinical depression, and I have been very upset since this hit. I'm not myself and sometimes get desperate. Okay, well, here's the situation, Diane. Get away from Port Authority, number one. I don't know what you're doing there. But get your depression treated. And here's how doctors are actually treating you. They're treating you on the computer, online. They're actually treating you that way. So get your sessions, get your medicine if you need your medicine. The pharmacies are open. Don't suffer needlessly. And depression is a real thing. We understand that. Okay. It's that same silver solution the televangelist is getting sued for promoting as a miracle remedy for this thing. Worse, I've researched on colloidal silver. This is a weird text from our friend Nadja. I have no idea what you're much like her phone calls, and she is so great. Nadja, you're great, baby. Yeah, really you are. I just want to have what you're having. What are you having tonight? I want to have what you're having. Can I get a little bit of something? Here's a guy who never took a drug in his life. I may go that way this evening. Can you give me what you're having there, sweetheart? Please. Our friend Jezebel. There's actually a person named Jezebel out there, and I'm a little bit afraid to communicate with somebody named Jezebel, but that's actually it's actually her name, I guess. You can't make that up. It's kind of like making up Ralph Romeo. You can't make that name up. You can't make Jezebel up. Jezebel says, wonderful show. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jezebel. I saw you. Okay, she said something else flattering. I appreciate that. I love Donald Trump. I like that he's forthright. I like that he tells it like it is. And I also like it that he's not a politician. Jezebel, let me talk to you about that. Do you know you're the first person that's ever said that? I don't know where you got that original statement from, Jezebel. Are you really? Where did you get that from? You didn't hear it anyplace, did you, by any chance? No, you couldn't have. That's all I've heard since the president has taken office, is that he's not a politician. He's not a seasoned politician. He's one of us. Well, if the president is one of us, I want $14 billion too. If he's just like me, well, I guess he wouldn't mind sharing his fortune. I want about $14 billion. That grand old guy in the White House, he's just one of us. I'll take a few of those billion there, buddy. Jezebel, Jezebel, you're so full of it. But I love you anyway. I really do. I really do. I'm very happy for a guy who's sitting at home most of his day, doing several programs right from the house. And seriously, for a minute, I'll calm down for a sec. I'm very lucky to be able to keep working. I mean, a couple of my jobs were taken away. I'm not acting, as I mentioned before. Of course, there's no acting going on. I'm not teaching. I will be, though, online, actually, online. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But I'm working, and that's fortunate on my part, because I know that most of you, or some of you, or maybe half of you, are not so lucky about that. And I really feel for you, seriously. Let's talk about the media for a second. My thoughts. The media is doing a relatively good job. The media wants answers. When I have to go back to the president again, when he takes the stage, and members of the media ask him various questions, and he just poo-poos those questions, calling them fake news or calling them attacks, undue attacks on his reputation, all of the above. What is the media person supposed to do except to keep hammering? And that's their job. They're supposed to hammer and hammer and hammer. And the president is supposed to have the fortitude to take it. But the president's skin is so thin that everything's an attack. Everything is just aimed right at his heart to dismember him, that the media person, the media member, can't do his or her job. You have to be able, Mr. President, you have to be able to fend off these people. You know, do you remember how Ronald Reagan used to do it? I hate to go back to Ronald Reagan because he wasn't one of my favorites, but I gained a false sense of security when I would hear him speak, because he'd be when he said, you know, I always go back to this part, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. When he did that, I said, go get him, Ronnie. Go get him, Ronnie. Did you tell him? But I felt secure. Whether it was a false sense of security, I'm not quite sure. But I did feel secure. But he got his point across. He got his barbs across. He got his various, if he disagreed with Sam Donaldson comes to mind. Do you remember Sam Donaldson? It was a royal pain in the ass. A good journalist, I thought, but a royal pain in the ass, because he would challenge the president, because, of course, they want FaceTime, airtime. And that's what he did back in the 80s. But the president would joust with him. And it was interesting television to watch if you happen to be privy to one of these conferences. It was interesting. They would joust. You know, the banter was really crisp and really clever. It wasn't a big blowhard like we have now up there just calling every intelligent question an attack or fake news. Stand at the podium, Mr. President, answer the question, deal with everybody, take the high road once in a while. Wouldn't it be lovely, folks, if the president did take the high road once in a while? Wouldn't that be a grand change of pace if he had the wherewithal to take the high road once in a while? It would be a wonderful thing. People were sending me a bunch of pictures of themselves. I appreciate that. Pictures and pictures, 6464. Men and women are sending pictures. I prefer the women. But it's okay. 646-492-2436. 646-492-2436. The social distancing, you have to abide by the social distancing, because that's very important. If you're not abiding by social distancing, don't go out of the house. Stay in the house. Don't put my life in danger. Do your thing and do it right. I actually made a note here, which is rare. I randomly said Orwell, 1984. I know you're familiar. Back in the 50s, George Orwell penned this wonderful book. And the prognostication therein was absolutely incredible. He actually called modern day life almost to the T. He was so good at what he was doing. He called everything that was going to happen in the future. He called it like he was fantastic in what he wrote. When I'm walking around now and I'm seeing everybody in masks and I'm seeing the police state that this is becoming, and I know most of it is necessary, and I'm seeing how that person next to me is my arch enemy just because he's breathing. And maybe he's 5 feet away instead of 6. I look at him with great disdain. He backs away. I'm standing here at the counter. I turn. The guy behind me is far too close. I turn and give him the evil eye. He backs away. When I realize how we have to conduct ourselves these days, and I think about that book that was, it was like a soothsayer. Everything that Orwell wrote in that book is coming to pass. It came to pass after 2001, when the towers were struck. We lost a great deal of our freedom back then because we were afraid of terrorists. Now the enemy is it's invisible. We don't see the enemy, but the enemy has become the other person standing next to you at the grocery store, or standing next to you at the bank. You can't go into banks. I forgot about that. Standing next to you on the street, perhaps, that's your enemy. And this, I have to use the word again, insidious virus. You can't see it. It's invisible, but it's going to get you. And it may kill you. That's your enemy. Isn't that strange? What a crazy way to live. Can you believe that we're here in April of 2020 and we're in this bad shape with no end in sight? I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. 646-492. Let me take a drink. I need a drink. Let me get a drink. Let's see this. Oh, I got it. Oh, that's good. I need a drink, bartender. Give me a drink. You better give me a drink. I'm kidding. 646-492-2436. 646-492-2436. President, my friend Julian, she's about as gorgeous as they come. President Trump is untouchable. Why does he care if he will face any consequences of his action? This country has not held him accountable. Julian, I knew I liked you for a reason, because you're on point, you're on message. You are exactly right. You know something? The sycophants out there for Donald. There has never been a fan club, ever. The Mickey Mouse fan club was never so loyal than the Trump sycophants. They are unbelievable. Again, when he mentioned, and I'll harken back to this, when he mentioned that he can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, boy, he knew what he was talking about. He could actually shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and then say, well, I had to do it. What's wrong? I had to do it. Come on now. Beautiful dreamer, wake unto me. All right, our friend Jessica, who's a frequent listener, Jessica says, you know something? The reason why I listen to you is only because of your voice. This is the one that said, she's at it again. It's only because of your voice. I disagree with you completely on almost every view. All your viewpoints, they're well thought out and they're amusing, but I disagree. But again, she says this, and Jessica, I love you for this. You could read the phone book and I would listen. I have another hour to spend with you folks. I may read the phone book. From 10 to 11, you never know. I may have to resort to reading the R's. Romeo, Romano, Rossetti, something like that. Let's see what our friend Albert from Syosset. Albert says that, yes, you're right about Orwell's 84. I was thinking the same thing. Thank you, Albert. Timmy. There's actually a grown man named Timmy. I would say Tim, but he actually specified. He said Timmy. I remember Timmy and Lassie when I hear his name. Timmy says that, yes, we had a wonderful time just 5 weeks ago. You're on point. I can't believe that in 5 weeks' time, the Gestapo is out. I think the masks are ridiculous. Timmy, I couldn't agree more. By the way, this is why I'm talking about the masks. What other jackass country would ever actually make a fashion statement out of a protective mask? Let me run that by you again because I want to see how foolish everybody is. What other country would actually create a fashion statement out of a mask that's supposed to stop you from getting a deadly disease? Only in America, folks. Only in America would we make a fashion statement out of a protective mask. Aren't we bright? Let's see. I ventured out. Okay, let's read this because I like her so much. I'm curious about what that girl was talking about. What's there not to agree with? You're always on point, Romeo. The health of the genetics, the public's well-being is hardly a topic that anyone could disagree with. Actually, it's been a trend in Japan and China forever. And our Chinese friend, actually, Lee says that I thank you for talking. I didn't mind he said, I didn't mind the imitation. It was actually funny. And I thank you for talking about the people not going into the stores. We need the business, and we're very, I don't know what he wrote here, but we're very something, and we do need the business, and I wish that people would continue shopping in our stores. It bothers me that they're so misinformed. I agree. Okay, our friend Tammy says, my nurse friend is being tested all the time. You can get tested in Philadelphia if you are sympathetic. If you are sympathetic, I'm not getting it, but I'm trying. The text is 646-492-2436, 646-492-2436. Before we go to the second hour, we have a few minutes. Have you noticed that if you're a fan of such things, have you noticed that talk radio the hosts have actually been nicer? I've always been a nice guy, but the hosts have actually been nicer in talk radio. Isn't that something? They've actually got the memo probably from up above, the program director, management, somebody. During this epidemic, during this pandemic, please be nice to the callers. Don't be your normal rotten self to the callers. Please try to be nice to the callers if you possibly can be, because and obviously the talk show hosts around the country, I've noticed this, the talk show hosts around the country have been abnormally nice. And to hear a guy like Mark Simone, if you're aware, down the dial, the guy with the toupee and the bad jacket and the whole works, to hear, he's supposed to be a ladies' man. Yeah. To hear about a guy like that, to actually listen to his program and actually hear him being nice to callers is really refreshing, because he was such a jerk to the callers, but suddenly he's nice. But what bothers me about it, I know it wasn't his idea. I know it was never his idea. I know that somebody whispered in his ear and told him he should be nice. And that's what happened with our friend Simone. I even noticed that with, who was the other host? that he sounds as if he's just, squeezing his testicles as he's speaking. What's his name? Oh, Mike, what's his name again? Michael Riedel. That's it. He regularly squeezes his testicles as he speaks. It's a beautiful thing. He actually said he was very nice to the callers. Now, this guy is very short. I don't mean in stature. I mean the way he responds. Very short, very curt in his responses. But I happened to tune in my final hour. My final hour got preempted this morning on my other show. And I happened to tune in to Michael Riedel. He's actually nice to the callers. He got the memo, too. And the other guy he works with, Len Berman, nice guy. But his viewpoint, he has no view. He has no views on anything because he did sports for many years. So he just doesn't know. So tonight, if you're not aware, here's the deal. I'll be on for another hour with this claptrap. And then at midnight, you get a beautiful music show that I haven't played in months. And, if you don't know the type of music that I play at midnight, well, you got to settle in with whomever it is next to you on that bed. And you just listen to my dulcet tones playing some great music that you have never heard, probably in a good long time. All the obscure stuff from all the great artists. I'll come on with that. Usually I do a retrospective of a certain artist for about a half hour. Then I'll go to another artist for the second half hour, something like that. And then at 1 a.m., you'll get the best of Romeo. How about that? So you want to stay tuned for the second hour here. My good friend Dawood at the shop will propel us into the second hour. And stay put. Don't go anywhere. And the problem with this is I don't know when the hour is exactly up. So I'll just sing the tune. Do, 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 do. It didn't go off the way I wanted it to. We're approaching the top of the hour. And this is Romeo Radio. Seriously, thanks for being with me. I really appreciate it.